Dearly redheaded, we are choosing consciousness today to get through this thing called grief. Interesting word, grief. It means love, which makes for a mighty good joke. But I'm here to tell you, there's nothing else. Just joy. And if the big picture tends to bring you down, go crazy once your life goes. Woo!
Hi, Brian. Hi, Shelly.
Hi.
It's Thursday. I just did 3 episodes with Tantra Tom. And Shelly and I are going to investigate consciousness and other shit. And I'd like to clarify that Shelly is not going to reveal much about her personal struggles, but we want to make sure you know that we are in agreement, Shelly and I, that enhanced spirituality and enhanced intuition really often is born out of trauma and abuse. And that's where we're aligned, and that's why we get a kick out of one another. And I really appreciate you being here, Shelly.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Hey, thanks. So I, as everyone knows by now, and Shelly knows, and Shelly's also, we're a big fan of The Breakdown with Mayim Bialek and Jonathan Cohen, and I've mentioned it 700 times because when I'm gone, they'll still be here. So I was guided to listen to the second episode with Thomas Campbell on quantum. I forget the title of it, but it's Thomas Campbell. He's a physicist. He wrote a book called My Big Toe. It's a trilogy. TOE stands for, something. But that's the name of the book. And I was listening to their conversation yesterday, and I had heard it before, but I wanted to talk with Shelly about it today because Thomas Campbell does such a good does a good job with talking about how to expand our consciousness. And he talks about it's yourself, your higher self, however you look at it, tuning into the larger consciousness system, which used to be, they don't talk about Carl Jung a lot. You all know that I'm a Jungian. Carl would have said tuning into the collective unconscious. I hear it more modern day being called the larger consciousness. And then the third way is tuning into the consciousness of another person, direct to another person. And I've experienced and continue to develop all 3 of those levels of consciousness. You too, Shelly?
I mean, I think I'd like to think of myself as trying to. That's my intention.
Yeah, I'm same here. I've only recently, I've done 10 years of concerted healing work, primarily CPTSI work, complex post-traumatic stress injury. I really believe in injury more than, what's the fucking word? Disorder. I believe it's an injury, not a disorder. And the more healing I do, the more conscious I become. This is a stretch, Shelly, but it happened in my episodes with Tantra Tom that he described dialing into the larger consciousness system with some non-drug enhanced commune with, he described it as a unicorn. It was, I think, what was it, Brian? A little bit of paranormal, he said. Brian started laughing, but he had like some of his guides come through him through this very, I don't want to say unique because a lot of people are having these experiences, but he tuned into the larger consciousness system and was guided by one of his guides to interpret that experience. That for me, and I giving you time to think, that for me, I had to have a psychedelic experience to be able to tune into that, to know what my brain was capable of seeing. Now I can do it without substance. Can you speak to or comment on your experiences? Because I know you don't engage anymore in substance. So are you having some of those ascension experiences without substance?
Well, I certainly can. I'm certainly able to, if that is my intention.
Right.
But I think I'm in agreement with you is that I really didn't know what was possible for my brain and consciousness, and whether it was I didn't actually maybe believe it was possible at all, like before I had any type of psychedelic experience. It didn't present to me prior to having a psychedelic experience in that way. And it may only because it was never my intention to do so. I was never, at the earlier parts of my life, I wasn't seeking that sort of ascension. So I can't speak on if whether or not I would have without at that time.
I absolutely.
I think once I had my first mushroom experience is when I was like, oh, wow, okay, there's more out there. And I've always known of it. I've heard other people speak to it, but there was always a part of me that was like, well, I'm not having these experiences. I'm not, for some reason, I don't have access to that. And I didn't even really have an intention to seek it out because I just, at that early stage of my life, for whatever reason, wasn't in the point of seeking more or believing that it was even possible. So that real first psilocybin experience showed me parts of the universe that I didn't expect to see.
Yeah. Yeah. I've shared with you, I've shared with you the extent, I think, of some of my greatest spiritual experiences and also my most traumatic ones, which I haven't shared here. And I've promised to talk more about both ends of it, leading with the trauma that led to the spirituality. And I'm just want to let audience members know that you and I were going to delve into that together, but we've decided to wait till we can devote a whole week to it. So I apologize that I'm not going there with Shelly now, but we'll get there. There's method to my madness. And the more I experience talking to people and can process what I want to share and how I want to share it, it's just very important to me. So that's kind of an aside. Yeah, I think you explained that beautifully. And Mayim had shared with Thomas Campbell that Tim Leary, who had a relationship in the 60s with the man who became Ram Dass. Ram Dass sort of became the non-substance user, and Tim Leary used substance to share their findings associated with, I don't know if we want to say consciousness where they're concerned. I'm not trying to be a guru there, but Thomas Campbell is someone who didn't, and from what I understand, didn't need substance to go to the point of having these pretty incredible experiences, which to me, it just, our brains, having come through trauma and abuse, our brains had to go somewhere to process. I guess the gift of trauma and abuse is your brain is open to higher level experiences. I don't know how else to put it.
I think our brain has to go somewhere in order for us to survive.
Yes.
I think our brains have very high tech survival mechanisms. And going through trauma and abuse, I think as a person, we become very hypervigilant in everything, which I think adds to the intuition we experience. And it just enhances the intuition that we may already have, or that we're more open to listening to it. Adds to the consciousness level of what we're talking about. I mean, I think it is a gift, but I don't think it is particularly for those who only experience abuse and trauma. I think it's open to all consciousness.
Yeah.
But I do think those who have gone through severe events in their life are probably more in tune to it, again, because, not to repeat myself, but our brains, in order to survive, they have to go somewhere. They have to go somewhere other than the reality that we're in.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think we are, and I don't mean the collective conscious can help humanity. I don't want to say wake up, because it's not really a judgment to wake up. It's more like an opportunity. It's Tom Campbell, Thomas, I don't know if he goes by Tom, was saying that when we're young, our intellect dictates and our intuition is there, but is a much smaller proportion of our operational being, if you will. And then when you get to be a certain age, how that kind of flip-flops. And I don't know how old he is. I would imagine he's in his 70s. He said at this point in his life, he's 80% intuition and 20% intellect. And I think that's another reason why people are able to wake up naturally. It's just a progression if you do the work. He was describing the benefits of meditation, but he also described the benefits of what Carl Jung would have called active imagination, where you allow your brain to create a scenario of colors, characters, places, whatever you want. And inevitably, there's things in the scenario. He used the example of a horse, and the horse starts to communicate and share with you things that you wouldn't think of on your own. And that was sort of his non-drug induced, larger consciousness system experience. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Well, I think Thomas Campbell described it as receiving downloads.
Yep.
In different forms, so whether it's a horse or whatever you're imagining and getting information from, it's a different way of receiving the information from the greater consciousness.
I actually find those experiences. I had one this morning because I deliberately tried out what he was suggesting this morning, and it was an unbelievable experience. I went to a place that I didn't expect. I went to my childhood neighbor's home. Couldn't remember my childhood home, but could remember the neighbor's home, and I started to have a recollection of the homes around it, the people's last names. There was this is all real stuff. This is not, I don't know how to, it was real things that I hadn't thought about in a long, long time. And I remembered walking down the street, and I was on the street, and I look over, and somebody, when I was a child, had like a puma in their living room, a real puma.
Oh.
And it would pace in the front window. And all of a sudden, I got an image of that puma, and I can remember being afraid, like as a child walking down the street. And it was just interesting. That's all. That's what came out of it. He uses that type of, I gather that type of active imagination experience for some very, very active brains is similar to meditation, which was his point for those who can't meditate, that's another place to experience processing and tuning into our own consciousness.
Yeah, I agree with that because, I mean, there's been times in my life where just letting my brain wander and experiencing thoughts and memories and things that just come to me, things that I probably wouldn't access in my daily life, things that I haven't thought about in decades. But to go back to that in an active imagination mind, I can only imagine how important that is for people to do that. And I think it's so profound for us who do go there, is because it's such a it's non-existent in our current reality of life. We're all stuck in this cycle of stress and materialistic things and the reality that we create for ourselves, that we forget that whole other world exists.
And that we're, as people, you and I both identify with long-term dissociation, to be able to do that and have my brain was literally naming the last name of the neighbors around me.
That's awesome.
It was.
That's really cool. Yeah.
It was. It was like I would ask in this experience, I would say, what was that man's name who lived with his mother? Boom, the name came. And what was the name of the family my sister babysat for? Boom, it was the name. And you have said to me in a private conversation a long time ago, where I say I've lost the memories, and you said to me, and again, tell me to go fuck myself, but you said, no, you've lost access.
Yeah, I still agree for that. And I'm glad you brought that up, because the thought in my mind is my friend who's dealing with dementia, sometimes we'll be talking and she'll say something that there's no way. If I would have asked her this question, she would have came up with that answer. But it just manifests in her that she can just name it to the detail. And she'll all of a sudden, we'll both have this shocked look, and we'll make eye contact, and we'll both be like, where did that come from? And I really do believe it's just an access loss, but I don't believe it's inaccessible. I think that through these types of meditations and connections that we can have access to it. It's just, I think a lot of it, for me, I feel like my biggest problem is sometimes I have too many expectations on what I want out of the meditation rather than just letting the meditation be the meditation. I'm looking for an outcome sometimes, and that places restrictions, that inhibits the access. Does that make sense?
Yes. And for me, beyond, like, within the meditation, and I'm no, I've been doing it, but I'm still so new at. I'm also trying to distinguish between what's telepathy, what's remote viewing, all within the work that I do. I have the utmost trust in, I'm learning to have the utmost trust in what I'm capable of, but I still am learning what manifestation of consciousness I'm tuning into.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think I intellectually know how to distinguish between the two, or between the three, or however many there are different types. I do know, though, intuitively that I am being given information, and learning to listen to that in the physical world is, I think, my challenge.
Well,
And I do mostly listen to it. I mean, I try to take what the information that I am being allowed to receive as divine, and the path. So I try not to intellectually think about it, and try to distinguish of what I'm actually seeing or what actually it is. I just go based off of how it feels intuitively.
Yeah, and it feels the same.
Yeah. I mean, and it feels, I don't know, it feels like a sense of it's like a warming safety feeling overall, no matter what the information is. It's like where it's coming from is coming from warmth and love and safety, not internal anxieties that are manifesting in my brain. Like there's a very distinct difference where it's not like I'm imagining being told something versus like what I'm actually receiving as information.
Cool beans, man. I think I shared with you I had an experience. I went to a consciousness, a woman who did a group session on automatic writing. And she and I ended up talking subsequently, and we're going to talk again. She's an extreme sexual and physical abuse survivor, incest. She had a complete dissociation till a certain event that eludes me right now. It was her problems with her daughter that her daughter brought to her, where she was able to take a deep dive into the behaviors that played into their relationship. And she subsequently, the timing of which, again, eludes me right now, but she had a near-death experience that was just unbelievable, just to hear her describe it. And she's in her 70s. Definitely some divine intervention when it came to her near-death experience, and subsequently her finding a very loving relationship. And I asked her if she related all that she had been through to her spiritual gifts and her meaning the spiritual and the intuition coming out of the trauma. And it was something she hadn't really thought about. She thought they were sort of like mutually exclusive, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in the room with her, and it's always really interesting to me how I will have greater abilities when I'm around somebody who's fiercely intuitive or a medium or a channeler, that we just enhance, maybe not their abilities, but my abilities get enhanced. And we were meditating, going into positioning ourselves to automatic right, and I tuned into her consciousness. And it was like only a handful of times that I can tell the difference. But this was blatantly obvious because what I was thinking was then what she said. And also, because I know you'll appreciate that, my intuition is autistic. Very, very literal. Very literal, which is just funny because, thank you. That just is one extra layer of the onion that I wanted to share, because it's also very helpful to realize when I'm getting these glimpses that sometimes they're very literal. Did I ever tell you, this is a segue, but did I ever tell you after my mom passed, I went to see a medium?
You did, yes.
All right. We haven't talked about it here, right?
I
I don't think so.
don't think so.
Brian, I haven't talked about that experience, have I? All right. So very quickly, and there's method to my madness, as there always is. I don't know if it'll translate, but it makes fucking sense to me. So here I go. But so I after my mom passed, I went to see a medium that Mom and I had seen prior. Mom and I, years and years prior, had an unbelievable experience with Jonathan Edward. Again, I wasn't really dialed in to my own intuition. I just thought we were having an incredible experience. You know, I realize that when people of a certain ilk get around one another, it, like I've already said, it enhances whatever ability you have or can dial into. So anyway, the medium who I subsequently met with for lunch was trying to explain that very often when she's talking to people, they want, like, she'll get a vibe and is reliant on the person to connect the dots. She can't always connect the dots and cross the T's. She can put the concept out there, and she's anticipating the person making a contribution. I hope I explained that well. So in the case of having this experience where my mom came through, the medium says to me, "Your mother's showing me apples." And I'm like, "Yeah, I've been eating a couple more apples." Did I tell you this? Do you remember where this is going?
No.
Okay, good, because I don't want to bore you, nor anybody else. So I was like, yeah. I've been, taking the time to take care of myself. I'm eating more apples. And she said, no, Joanne, bushels of apples, bushels. I said, I don't know. So my mother's grandmother's last name is Bushel.
Mm.
And when I left with the notes from that evening, she has somebody, an assistant that writes the notes, so you don't have to when you're getting the connection is being made. She has someone take the notes for you so you can reflect back on it. And the woman who took the notes for me didn't spell bushel, B-U-S-H-E-L, like a bushel of apples. She spelt it with a C in it the way my mother's grandmother spelled it. You know what I mean? And it was just like one of those moments where it was like, okay, I am very literal. So I'm trying to give a funny example of how my intuition plays out. And I hope that translates, because it was the whole experience was unbelievable. That's just one part of it. So, my dear, believe it or not, we're already through our first episode.
Okay.
Went pretty quick. I just want to make sure I covered everything. Was there anything else? Because now I realize you watched the episode with Thomas Campbell. Was there anything else that he said or they discussed that stood out for you?
I mean, no, I think we covered what basically stood out for us individually with him. I mean, he has a lot of episodes everywhere, not just with Mayim. I find him very interesting. And I've watched him on other people's platforms before. He was on Mayim, and I've always found him and his experience quite interesting. So I just I always find this stuff very intuitively. I'm there. Intellectually, it's hard to grasp. I'm like, what is happening? What are they talking about? But intuitively, it feels right. And I like to explore his experiences and relate them to my experiences. But again, I'm like, I don't care how many years that I've been meditating.
She got cut off.
Did we get cut off?
We got cut off. Brian will take out those few. He'll take out that. So you said no matter how many years you've been meditating,
I'm still new.
Yeah.
So I'm still learning, and it's like I'm still crawling. So I just like taking Thomas Campbell, amongst others, experiences as a guide to go deeper into myself.
Yeah, I feel like I've got the psychology, I've got the neurology, I've got the spirituality, I've got the philosophy, but I don't have what the scientists have to justify the intellectual pieces that only.
And does it need to be justified intellectually? I mean, like, I know it helps wrap your head around it, right? It helps for me to have the science to wrap my head around it, because it's like, oh, see, there is proof. But really, is it needed? It's kind of like that blind faith kind of thing. Like, okay, intellectually, we know it's there, so what else do we need?
I can only speak for me. After what I've been through, I am fucking grateful for the science. I wish I wasn't 56 and could study more, but I've been guided to know that I'm here for the future, not for the past. So I try to cut myself some slack on what I haven't studied. I'm just glad that there are people making those connections for me.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with that.
All right, Brian just shook his head vehemently, so we're gonna we're gonna stop and move into take a break and move into the next episode.
Thank you for listening and supporting Natural Born Redhead. If you follow the bouncing balls, please like and subscribe. If you know someone interested in sparing others grief and inciting joy, message me on Facebook or reach out via my website, Natural Born Redhead. Jai Ma.